Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal Saturn in conjunction with your ascendant. I think typically you will have both of these placements in the same sign, but not necessarily. It really is about the degree span, and the conjunction means that they are pretty close together. The ascendant or rising sign is the cusp of the first house of the self. And so it really speaks to the appearance. And we could say also the mannerisms of a person. The first house is the house of the self, but that can include the body. But when we're actually talking about that ascendant, we can really be talking about physical appearance specifically, and how the person is perceived by others. So this type of person, because Saturn is right on top of it, is going to seem businesslike, that professional demeanor to other people. I'm sure we all know individuals who dress up even when they're in casual situations where they can't just wear a pair of faded jeans and a ratty t-shirt. They always have to, have like a suit or a blazer or at least a button-down shirt. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. And it really is symbolic for some of their other traits. Like they may, when I say traits though, this is how they're coming off. And you have to understand that the rising sign is really, to me, speaking about the person's family of origin and how they had to react to life. And some of this the person can grow out of, because it is that initial influence. So it's kind of a reactive thing more than anything, as far as I'm concerned. And so it isn't the true self. And even your sun sign isn't a true self because it's just for this lifetime. But the sun is more of what you came here to be. The rising sign can be the reaction to what you might have been forced to deal with growing up. This is just how I personally differentiate the two influences. And with Saturn, I was going to say Saturn rising because that's what it seems like, or Capricorn rising, but with Saturn in conjunction to the ascendant, you may have been someone who had a lot on your plate as a young child. You might have this sense of a lot of responsibility, and it kind of mirrors the way that you dress, almost like a little adult, and you might have been treated like a little adult. So there's like this conservative demeanor and the stiff upper lip type of thing. I'm getting my information from a website called teaandrosemary.com. So I want to give a shout out to them because they use terms like businesslike and bland. I think bland is a little bit, I would say, I don't think bland and boring are synonyms. I would say more like boring because we think of something that is businesslike or conservative as kind of boring, but bland, well, maybe it is kind of, similar, where it's nondescript. Let's put it that way. But I don't really think that's true because I honestly have seen some people who are dressed professionally, in a professional manner, and they have a real flair. Even though the clothing is very traditional, it has a very clean line, and it's not trendy. I do feel that it can be very appealing. So I don't know if I would say bland, but it definitely can be conservative. And like, for instance, I prefer color, and a lot of people gravitate towards neutral colors. Gray, that's what I would associate with Saturn in conjunction with the ascendant, and black and all of that. And things with color may be seen as too out of the box. So the other thing that can happen, I think, is being somber. Okay. And austerity is another thing. Austerity means that the person was deprived of something. And this also comes about when people have Capricorn rising, because this is a similar type of a thing, or just having Saturn in the first house. So I think that a lot of people with this position are duty bound, which means that they feel like they are responsible for others, especially I think when it's a family situation, because there is that real connection with the family, and with the first house, that can be those early years. And it's like being born old. And they mention being an old soul. I'm not really sure about that, because I don't think that it really confers wisdom necessarily. I think it's just heavy responsibilities, but maybe there's something to that. Saturn is the lord of karma. So I feel like the people have come into a karmic situation. And of course, every family situation is very likely karmic. But when I say karmic, I'm specifically saying that there are challenges from the get-go. That the child may be kind of in this article they don't seem to mention it, but I'm skimming it very quickly here. But I feel like just like with Capricorn rising, or just having Saturn in the first house, that the child may have to fend for themselves in some way. It doesn't mean that the parents are drug addicts or mentally ill or anything like that. It could, but I feel more often that for some reason they are doing their own thing, and they expect the child to pull their own weight. And because of this individual can be very self-contained. So you may be a person who doesn't really ask for help, and you do try to do things on your own. But there's that kind of overly serious demeanor could be coming from feeling this deprivation in some way when you were younger. And as you get older, because Saturn is father time, but it tends to youth instead of age, which is kind of, it seems like that would be counterintuitive for what Saturn represents. But, it's like Saturn is born old. So it can only go backwards once it has accomplished its goals. That you may loosen up, become less inhibited, because they make a good point on this website, that it's not necessarily that you might be shy. It might be that you feel some kind of repression of you may just naturally repress your emotions, for one, and not be overly emotive, but also feel that sense of inhibition, and that keeps you from doing, because the rising sign can be very expressive, because it's kind of like your calling card in a sense, since it's representative of yourself. So this idea of the person who has this conjunction is that because Saturn represents restriction, you may feel restriction with bodily movements, and you're very economical with them. That's another thing that Saturn represents. And I actually know somebody, well, I shouldn't say that because I know the person has Saturn in the first house, but I don't know if they have Saturn in conjunction with the ascendant. But I'm just going to mention this person because I think that it's going to manifest pretty similarly. Kind of like deadpan, where it's like, and even if the person's sun sign is Leo or other fire signs that tend to be quite self-expressive, because of that rising sign, the person may be monotone. They may be kind of deadpan. And I do feel that after the first Saturn return, there may be the ability for the person to kind of break down that wall and become more authentic in the emotions. Well, it's not about authenticity, about showing authentic emotion versus just not showing anything at all. And opening up more in that sense. Because we all know people who are very self-expressive and almost over the top in that way. And likewise, there are people who you sense that they are keeping things under wraps, and that's going to be this type of person. I think it would be interesting to know how somebody with this conjunction starts dressing when they are, let's say, 40 or 50 or 60. Maybe they start to introduce some brighter colors. And, you do have to look at other influences, because if you do have a fire sign, sun sign, or maybe Mars, Venus, you may favor, brighter things. And that might actually tilt the balance in the other direction. And the person will be less of that kind of austere individual. But if you are somebody who's a fire sign who has always wondered why, or even an air sign who has always wondered why you were so inhibited, maybe now you know why. And knowledge is power. All of these placements that I talk about are not things to be viewed as set in stone. They're just kind of like the jumping off points for you to kind of reflect on your life and how these patterns have developed and been maintained through repetitive action and repetitive beliefs that this was how you were supposed to do it. And when you realize, hey, I can actually do things differently, there's a sense of liberation there, because you know that, no, it isn't set in stone. I can do things a bit differently. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.